Okay, and what do you do?
I'm actually a District 2 Commissioner for Calhoun County here in Calhoun County, Michigan.
Are you from here?
Born and raised right here in Battle Creek, Michigan.
Okay. So what is your position? What do you want to tell us about today?
Well, one of the main things is that when the oil spill had taken place, it was very interesting because the very next day, the fumes were so strong. When I first got wind of it was when I actually had inhaled the fumes from this oil, and I was at one of our local car lots, Sealy Right Key of Battle Creek, which is just south of the river on Dickman Road. And when I got out of the car, I asked the guys there, I said, "What is that smell?" They said, "Oh yeah, that was the river. That was at the river, the oil spill that had taken place last night." I'm like, "Wow." So then from that moment, then it kind of shifted to where now I'm seeing in the news and hearing all this stuff, getting phone calls from folks from the county, some of my other fellow commissioners. We had talked, and there was a briefing at the county level with the administrator, controller, and other commissioners that actually had to go and find out from the Enbridge executives or the people that were on the ground at that time what actually had occurred and how bad was it and that kind of thing. So then later, we started getting more information in regards to how large and how great this issue was. And so from that point, that's when I actually met John Bolenbaugh. John Bolenbaugh had showed up at some of our county commission meetings, and I actually wanted to know more because I was a little curious about his efforts in regards to trying to address these issues. And when he laid it on me about how he had worked for this company, and then he was actually trying to expose the fact that this whole cleanup effort and the issues that they were having were trying to be covered up. And so I said, that sounds kind of interesting, you know. So I actually had taken to him right from the jump because I really stand for righteousness. Just tell the doggone truth, you know. And when I felt like our residents were being kind of spoon-fed, a little bit of truth, a little bit of lie, at that point it becomes a whole lie for me because there is no mixing the truth. And so then when John Bolenbaugh started showing me video captions that he had taken, I'm like, this is getting better. So so myself as well as Commissioner Jim Hosbaum, we had taken interest to the story that he was developing on this issue, and then I found out he had ended up losing his job and that kind of a thing. And I'm like, wow, that's kind of messed up because from my understanding, that's why companies hire people, because they're honest and, you know, they're truthful about who they are and about the product that you're trying to actually get out. So I'm like, wow, that's something that he would lose his job, even though he's trying to make for sure that the corporation's reputation is on the line here, you know. So anyway, when a lot of this started to unfold, then I started thinking like, wow, that's interesting that they would actually have this happen, fire one of their, I guess, committed employees who was really trying to hold them accountable to be truthful with the residents, but then at the same time, try to save money and try to also, you know, I guess, influence people by their money. So all of this deception and these lies that are being told got to be even more interesting to me, and so that's why I really actually had taken to John Bolenbaugh, because I knew he was a man of righteousness. And so I had spoken to him at one point, and I told him, I said, well, John, I said, to be honest with you, I said, really Dr. King and as well as Rosa Parks and Malcolm X and all these other great activists over the years, this is how it actually starts. You know, they stood for righteousness. They just stand for human rights and people being treated fair and equitable. And that's really all you're trying to do, is give people what's rightly due to them, you know. And so then I began to be a little bit more passionate. I actually showed up at one of Mr. Bolenbaugh's open talk sessions, which was held at the Urban League here in Battle Creek, Michigan. And so I sat in on that, and they were actually kind of updating us and showing us more video clips of things that he had gathered. And so then I said, you know what, this is a guy that I can actually stand beside or stand behind, whichever way you want to call it. But because again, it's about righteousness, it's about doing what's right by people. And it saddens me that that people can be persuaded simply just because they can come in and kind of hide beneath their money. And that's really what's happening, because what you do is, the strategy is to go into a community, have this issue happen, which really could have been prevented, because my understanding, this pipeline was actually noted that it was due to be changed years before this even occurred. That's really when I started to get inflamed even more, because it could have been preventable. So they come into a community, their strategy is to keep the attention off of them by actually covering things up. I've also heard clips that Mr. Bolenbaugh had of individuals who were interviewed, and they were caught saying that, hey, I got mouths to feed and that kind of a thing, so I can't give you this amount of information, that amount of information. I'm like, wow, really? So you guys, because of you getting this paycheck, you would rather be okay with actually allowing these guys to just cover this stuff up, regardless of how many people have now had, I guess, health issues, people possibly their lives being cut short, or their lives being cut short to some degree because of the inhaling of these fumes and whatnot, or even exposure to this horrible tar sand stuff. You guys would really be okay with covering that up just so the fact that you can put bread on the table. And the truth of the matter is yes. And so, the Bible says that, what does it profit a man to gain the world but lose his soul? And so that's really what's happening. You got some people that can just simply be bought, and they don't understand that a week later you can lose your job. So then what? So then, is that when you start to come forward and start telling truth and standing for righteousness like this man is doing? So as long as they are okay and they have bread on the table, they're okay with being a part of these lies that are being created. Another thing that I saw too is that, I would see the written reports that Enbridge would have as far as the progression that they were making on the cleanup. And so we were offered like boat rides, and so I actually had taken one of the boat rides, and we were offered like flyovers. I never did a flyover because to me a flyover is weak. That is that is an attempt to get or to appease me. In other words, I'm flying over, but what am I looking at? So I would rather be up close and personal. So when I realized that John had these videos, I'm like, oh, I don't need to even go. Because the video don't lie. He's there, he's showing the evidence there. So I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. So I told John one time, I said, yeah, I don't even need to go out there, John. I believe you, and I see it for what it really is. And so, there are laws against harassment, bullying, intimidation, and all that kind of stuff. But usually when people have deep pockets, sometimes they get brushed over, and that's really what they're actually doing. They also did some efforts with the schools. They brought in some individuals, and they had an educational session with some of the students to show them their line of work, that kind of a thing, and some possible solutions that can be made in regards to trying to get this thing resolved or whatever. But again, that's a strategy that you use to show, see, we're not as bad as you think we are. We're not this big bad wolf, and trying to tear up your livelihood. We're actually doing things well. We're educating the kids. We're sending your teachers to Colorado to educate them, sending them to a conference to be more educated on the science aspect and all this. So, we actually had a group of science teachers that were funded by Enbridge to go to a convention or a conference out in Colorado. And so you do those things to kind of take the heat or the pressure off of you a little bit. And then, like, for example, I spoke out one time at a commission meeting, and because they did a presentation on river access. They wanted to build up now the river and playground equipment for the kids and all this stuff. And so I spoke out and I said, well, that's interesting that you guys would even entertain the thought of giving access to the river. And I said, well, what about this submerged oil that we talked about that was constantly being brushed under the rug? Because from the beginning, the submerged oil wasn't really even discussed until the video started to come out, and he actually showed they're submerging this stuff, they're hiding this submerged oil. And so then that's when they go back and start, well, we got to go back and start cleaning this stuff up. Then that's when they started to react to John Bolenbaugh's video. So I'm like, wow, to this day, do I believe that some things have been cleaned? Yeah, absolutely. But some things, a whole lot of stuff hasn't been, because really it's about money. It's about money. And if you really, truly want to get that river cleaned up, you're going to have to reroute the whole doggone river. You're just going to have to reroute it. You're going to have to change its course. get in there and actually bring in the bulldozers and dig all that stuff out, which is money. Time is money. So Enbridge is saying we don't have the time or well, they got the money, but they don't have the time to even do that. So the best thing to do is cover that stuff up, bring some grass back. Oh, the deer are coming back and all this. Are you kidding me? The deer are coming back. But it's really sad because, again, people are being rocked to sleep, and then also time is going by. So the more time that goes by, you allow people to take their attention off this issue. So the thing that I love about John Bolenbaugh is the fact that he hasn't been rocked to sleep. And so I said, man, you stand for righteousness, regardless, do not be bought out. You can't buy. You can't buy your righteousness. You can't. It's just something that's in you. So I greatly commend Mr. Bolenbaugh for what he's doing. The Bible says, buy the truth and sell it not. The bottom line is stand for truth. You know what I mean? Stand for it. Don't sell out. Don't sell out regardless. I mean, if you go down, you at least go down knowing that you stood for truth. You know? And so, so again, what does it profit a man to gain the world but lose his soul? And so what he's doing is he is that voice for those people who really don't have a voice. And so I was actually speaking with a gentleman earlier about a disproportionate number of people who were, I guess, being disenfranchised or really being overlooked. And to be honest with you, I think a lot of our low-income families are being overlooked. I do know one particular area along Hamblin Avenue, right in the city of Battle Creek, that goes right through downtown Battle Creek. Years ago, it was known to be the bottoms. You know, they call it the bottoms. And years ago, that area would flood out because of the Kalamazoo River, but of course they rerouted it and built walls up and stuff like that. But I do know the people in those areas, they're still there. You know, were they offered the same kind of deal or compensation that the folks downriver or upriver were offered? Absolutely not. These people are there. So why were these people offered some things and these others were not? You know what I mean? Why? I mean, that's absolutely crazy. So again, that's strategic. That's all a plan. That's all within the plan of deception, and quite honestly, there's no room for that here. And so I don't fear none of them. I could care less. I mean, you know, do I believe they're evil? No, I don't think they're evil people. I think they have poor leadership. Because the same thing with Mr. Bolenbaugh. He has families that work for oil companies or whatever, but these people are concerned about their careers. Some of them have lots of money invested into their education, gone and got their degrees. Now they've landed a great opportunity to work for a company that say they are a company of integrity and doing what's best for the future of our nation and whatever. But, you know, at the price of them not losing their careers and their jobs to be able to provide for their families, they're just taking orders from the top. That's the bottom line. So I don't hold that group necessarily. Well, I somewhat do hold them accountable to some degree because, again, they could join forces with him and say, hey, forget that, enough's enough, because I know in the end I got God to answer to, you know, on this whole thing. So, but some of them are, their backs are against the wall. The economy, to some degree, is not looking real promising to some of them, so they're just trying to hold on to what they have. So,
do you know much about Talmadge Creek prior? Okay, let me just say this real quick. Mm-hmm. They said it was clean. All the documents said it was clean.
Right, that's right.
They planted grass, stocked it with fish, told the residents it was done, and then they come back and reclaim the whole thing. Can you talk about anything that you might know about that?
I don't know too much about that, John, to be honest with you. I am aware of it just simply from your videos and you informing us, which I thank God for you, because you are actually informing us and educating us on what was said, but what's really in actuality has been done. Like you said, there were documentation saying that it is clear. There were even flags or whatever in certain areas that said, well, this area is cleared now, it's safe to go, whatever. But then when he goes back, see, hey, here's a flag here, but look at this. He gets the shovel out and say, look, this is all oil, people. And you saw the sheen come up, and he had black stuff all over his gloves and everything. And one thing that I found interesting was when John actually he stepped in, this was in Talmadge Creek area, I believe, where he actually stepped into an area that had grass that had been planted there, or, I mean, you could see it was like a carpet of grass there, but when he stepped in, his leg literally sunk down into the ground, and when he pulled it out, it was just muck. It was real thick, just filled with oil and sand and all this stuff, and I'm like, wow. But again, this is an area that was said that was clear. So who holds these people accountable? And that is the issue. And I think part of it is because, again, their money and all these individuals who are, I guess, I don't know if they're money hungry or whatever, but I think a lot of it has to do with the money issue, you know. Well, but to some degree, to John Bolenbaugh, to his credit, though, to be honest with you, some of these places have been actually returned to actually make it right, simply because he has exposed the truth. And so so hopefully, you know, we'll stick to the grind, and he'll stay his course, and eventually, over how many ever years it's going to take, hopefully eventually we can get that issue resolved with getting the river cleaned back up, and actually just compensating people and doing what's right by people. That's just the bottom line. And really all the people are really asking for is just make it right. Tell us the doggone truth. You know, all we want is the truth, and then you make it right with us. That's it. We're not asking for 40 acres and a mule. We just want the truth, and we want you to compensate us for whatever causes this has had on us, whatever impact that has had on us and our families and our health and those kinds of things, you know. And so that's all they're asking for. They're not asking them to buy them groceries and give them a house on the hill or anything like that. Quite honest, like this lady that was here previously, she had nowhere to go. Now, I mean, you know, and like the gentleman earlier, he said, listen, thank God he could afford to go to a hotel, you know, but some people couldn't. In regards, like, i.e. the people that are in the bottoms along Hamlin Avenue. I mean, these are people that's struggling to make ends meet as it is, let alone going to a hotel, you know. So, so all they're asking for is just for them to make it right and tell us the doggone truth. How long is this really going to take? You know, do we really have to reroute this whole river to really make it right? In my own personal opinion, I really think that's what it's going to take. But because they don't want to take the time to do that, then we just cover it up. That's the easy fix. And then, like I said earlier, we cover it up. We give people little boat rides. Say, see, look at this, you know. And then we spend a little money here or there to educate the community about it. We hold little town hall meetings and sessions or whatever. See, we're doing our job. But my question is, where was all that prior to the oil spill? You know what I mean? I had never even heard of Enbridge until the oil spill. You know, now you come out the woodworks to come into the schools and send teachers to get training and stuff like that, you know. My thing is why weren't you doing that prior to all of this, you know? And maybe it could be their way of just trying to simply make it right. I don't know, but to me, I really believe that it's not so much trying to make it right, it's really trying to rock people to sleep and give them a different impression. And I think what John Bolenbaugh is doing is just saying, boom, this is what it is. This is truth, folks. You take it for what it is. So. And I really greatly appreciate someone who can just simply be boldly honest with me and tell me the truth. Thank you.
EPA, Susan Hedman, I just had an interview with her. I interviewed her and I asked her about the Kalamazoo. It's coming up on the 2-year anniversary, and she said that it was cleaned up. And she said it's going to be cleaned up, and I think the date for cleanup is in June. What do you have?
Kalamazoo, oh, the river?
Yeah, Kalamazoo River. How do you respond to that?
I respond, that's an absolute lie. And you need to quit lying to these people and tell the truth. I know that some of these people were raised better than that. You know, quit lying to people and just flat out tell them the honest to God truth. If you can look God in the face and say that you're telling the honest to God truth, that this thing will be cleaned up. Now, and seeing a lot of these people are speaking to their own perception. You know, from their perspective or their own personal opinion. No, we're not going to go off your opinion. Tell us the doggone truth. What John has done is he's shown it. You know what I mean? So if you can't come out and show us that, then that's lies. That's again going down that road of deception and trying to lure people. It's not going to be cleaned up. It's not.
So, do you think the EPA is protecting the people?
Do I think EPA is protecting the people? Absolutely not. Not with lies. Not with lies, not with deception. I don't know, maybe Enbridge giving them a kickback or whatever. I don't know. I can't speak to that, but as far as I'm concerned, EPA to some degree is not really protecting the people with a lie like saying that it's going to be cleaned up. To whose standards? You know what I mean? That's the question. To whose standards is it going to be cleaned up? Because from what we've been shown from John, in the video surveillance, I mean, it's not going to be cleaned up. And we know the honest God truth is going to take a lot longer than what it's going to take now. you know. So 2 years, nah, not the damage that has, you know, been done to it. I mean, you know, nah, it's not gonna be cleaned up. And then we have a play on words too. So when people say it's going to be cleaned up, what does cleaned up actually mean? Is it going to be returned back to normalcy? Is it going to be better than we found it, or is it cleaned up to the bare minimum standards after this oil spill? I mean, you know, what are we talking about here? Because some people get into semantics and playing on words. Well, it's going to be cleaned up. What, to the human eye, or do we need John to come out with a bulldozer and dig even deeper? I mean, you know what I mean? So we really need to talk about, what do you mean by when you say cleaned up? All the oil will be gone or whatever, and fish will be flopping around again and all that. I mean, you know, well, you could stock the doggone river with fish, but again, we need to talk about, what do you mean by when you say cleaned up? So my personal opinion, I would say, to a person like that, that's a lie. It is flat out a lie. You cannot wholeheartedly say this is going to be cleaned up, because it will not be. Because, well, John, you have enough in your arsenal, to be honest with you, that even Ray Charles, who's dead and he was blind when he was living, could actually see that. You know what I'm saying? This whole trial thing and all that stuff, to me, is it's very elementary of them to even try to take that to that extreme. Really, I think what's going to happen is, again, that money thing. You know, that whole money and deep pockets and stuff. I mean, you know, but hopefully righteousness will prevail through it all. I have no question and no doubt, really, to know that that eventually you will come out on top, regardless of how it comes out, because you exposed the truth. You know, you told Big Brother, no, you can't just push people around anymore. You know what I mean? And so it's very unfortunate that it had even gone that far. But
what do you think about me getting arrested? You know, I did go to jail for videotaping. I went onto a work site and videotaped them digging up this oil that they buried, that they said on the news was mud. Went to court, and Enbridge never showed up, and they dropped charges.
That's right.
So what do you think about them even calling the cops and having me arrested for what I'm doing?
Again, that's one of those cover-up deals. You know, that's Big Brother trying to push little brother around. That's called bullying. You know, it's a form of bullying. That's all they're doing. You know, they're trying to bully you and push you around and think that just because you get arrested, then they're trying to give the public a certain image of you. See, we had to have him arrested. He's trespassing and all this. How's he trespassing? He's on a river. You know what I mean? I mean, you know, and really people will only go to that extreme if they have something to hide. That's just bottom line. You know, I mean, having you arrested, taking you to court and all this other stuff, to me, none of that would even be necessary if I had nothing to hide, you know? And so obviously, this is all working together for your good, because again, it just exposes it. That's all it does. That's really all it does. And regardless of however the court proceedings come out or whatever, you still come out on top, because you let them know. I mean, you're basically doing this kind of single-handedly with a group of people rallying around you saying, hey, you know, hey, that's true, yeah, you know, I'm having this issue. And to really be honest, had you not come forward, how many people would have even said, hey, you know, yeah, I'm starting to have some mental and some medical issues, you know. I mean, some people wouldn't have even had enough guts.
They wouldn't have put it together.
Yeah, they wouldn't put it together. Yeah, they really wouldn't have. Yeah, absolutely. So,
I really believe that Talmadge Creek would still be buried. I believe that Thoresco Dam, they wouldn't have went back out and redug that up.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you, Commissioner Todd.
No, I greatly appreciate the opportunity, man. I mean, you know, any way that I can help, just kind of let me know. Hopefully, I'm available to do so. But man, I greatly appreciate all you're doing, man. You know, just keep fighting the good fight. Keep fighting the good fight, man. I guarantee you, man, that, you know, the Lord is proud. He's proud of the fact that somebody is standing for righteousness. And again, throughout history, we've seen it. You know, like I said, Dr. King and all these other great people. I mean, you know, even though that was on a national scale, but this is national too. You know what I mean? It's going to evolve into something even greater. You know what I mean? So my thing too is that it was really unfortunate that we even had a pipeline near the water. You know, near our water. I mean, like I was telling the individual earlier, this oil had nowhere else to go. I mean, you know, this oil is running right into a river that's going right through an urban, through a city or whatever. I mean, I don't know, I wish there were some laws or regulations in there that actually said that you can't put a pipeline within a certain amount of feet or miles of a waterway, you know, because ultimately, I mean, it creates it creates what we have now, even on a larger scale, you know, so. But I commend you though, man, I really do, and that's why I'm here today. You know, I could have made up an excuse or whatever, but I would have been lying, and I'm not all about lying, but because you stand for what's right, you stand for truth, and you're giving these people a voice, man. I mean, you know, I'm with you on that, man. I'm
Thank
with
you.
you. I
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Commissioner.